Like a lot of other people, I recently watched K-Pop Demon Hunters and absolutely fell in love with it. I thought it was funny, original, the music was fantastic, the animation was really great, and there was just so much to it to fall in love with. Also, I think it's the most fun I've had with a movie in years, and I know for myself, whenever I check out something I really like, I'm immediately wondering what other things are like this that I could check out because I want more of this, and I figured I'm probably not alone in that. So if you similarly are looking for things that if you liked K-Pop Demon Hunters, you might like these things as well, I figured I'd go ahead and make a list of my recommendations. I am going to be breaking this up into categories because I figure everybody liked the movie for different reasons. So we're going to have a list of things that fall under the romance category, things that fall under demon hunting and monsters, those sorts of things, as well as music, vibes, and animation. And some of these stories could easily fall within multiple categories, so I will have a little indication on the screen. Even though I tried to place them where I thought they were best represented, some of them could have overlap, and I'll make that known as we're going through these. Also, before I give my recommendations, feel free to give yours as well. One, because selfishly, I would love some recommendations, and two, that way anybody that comes to this doesn't just have my recommendations, but yours as well. I'll have all of these linked in the description bar so that you can easily reference back to any of it. If I have more in-depth reviews for any of them, because I'm going to go through them kind of quick, I'll link those as well. But without further ado, let's jump into the recommendations. We'll go ahead and start with the romance category. I am going to pull from a variety of different kinds of stories, so we are going to see anime, manga, TV shows, video games, and books. And the first one does happen to be a book, and that would be Wicked Fox. I imagine so many people are going to give this recommendation. If you found that you yourself paused the video to give a recommendation, you end up saying one of the things that I said, don't worry, I always find that that just reaffirms that that's a recommendation that might work for a lot of people. And this one is one I could imagine a lot of people giving because it just so comfortably fits. It is Korean folklore. The setup is that you follow a character who is an 18-year-old who is actually a nine-tailed fox, and she feeds off of the energy of men, and she tries to go out of her way to only feed off of men who have committed terrible acts. However, at one point, she loses her bead, which is really significant to her ability to continue living. And I was really surprised because, obviously, talking about it, you can see the parallels already. It's a contemporary setting, but there is some folklore woven into it. But the thing that took me aback with this was just how much it explored the familial aspects and even the trauma that the characters have gone through based off of the relationships they have with other family members. It did remind me a little bit of one of the characters that feels a little bit like the black sheep in the family, but also the complicated relationship with mother figures, which you saw in K-Pop Demon Hunters. So there's so much about this one that I think easily, if you liked that story, you might find that you like this one too. After that, we have works by Sulin Tan. I am holding up Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which is part of a duology, but there is another recent release called Immortal that you could easily pick up as well. The setup for this one is that you follow this character who has been living with her mother, who is this moon goddess, and something happens where these people are coming after her mother, and so in an effort to save her, she descends to where the rest of the celestial beings live, and she is trying to figure out a way to get back to her mother to help her, but also she has no idea how to navigate things because she's having to essentially start from the bottom and work her way up. There's a bit of a love triangle in this between a character who is more of a mysterious, dark figure and then a character who is more princely in nature, and definitely one of the characters I think is much more like what we see from K-Pop Demon Hunters, and if you like that general archetype for a love interest, then I think you will definitely enjoy the love interest in this one. As far as Immortal, the other work by this author, I find that that one feels a little bit more push and pull. It's not a love triangle, it's just one individual. And once again, you have a character who is finding themselves going to a place that they are unaccustomed to, and they're trying to get used to that area. And the other person, the love interest, is from this area. So there is this, we're from different sides of a conflict, so to speak. And in this one, it's not so much different sides of a conflict as it's just different worlds. But the other one, it really feels like this person is borderline despised. Not even really borderline. They are not liked. The love interest is not liked initially. So it does have a little bit more of that enemies to lovers feel. If you like enemies to lovers, I really feel that one that everybody points to, and while in its setting it's not necessarily similar, it is going to, I think, check that box. And that would be the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. I know this is really well known. I know tons of people have picked it up, but there aren't too many things that people point to that do the whole feeling of enemies to lovers more than this series does. Also, there's a lot of scheming, there's a lot of wickedness, but there's also complicated relationships with family members as well. I do think K-Pop Demon Hunters had a lovely sisterly feel to it, and this one, there is a sister. I don't know if it's as loving of a relationship as what you get in K-Pop Demon Hunters. It is still present, and if you're looking for something where it's like the darker side of things and the more sinister pieces of K-Pop Demon Hunters, but dialed up to the extreme, then you're gonna get that, but also with Fae rather than what you see there. Next up, we have the God and the Gumiho. Similar to Wicked Fox, you are following a character who is, once again, somebody that is a nine-tailed fox. In this particular story, it is a lot more adult than the other. Wicked Fox is young adult. This one, it's adult, so it's kind of like if you enjoyed aspects of K-Pop Demon Hunters, but you're looking for something that maybe is aged up a little bit, this one certainly is. Every time I have described what this one felt like reading it, I always say it felt like an anime in book form because it's very over the top, it's fun. Not that every anime is over the top, of course, but some animes really lean into being over the top for the sake of humor and to play up character interactions in a way that is entertaining and very intentional. And I absolutely felt like that was true of how this one played out. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It is a lot of fun. And the setup is that this character ends up essentially joining forces with this fallen god who is tasked with trying to solve a bunch of crimes, basically, is a quick way to summarize. And one of the things that they're trying to find is this infamous nine-tailed fox who is our main character, and she is aware that he is looking for her, so she starts working with him to basically try to get him off of her tail and also try to redirect him toward a different threat. So she's helping him with that, but then also perhaps, because this is falling under the romance category, as you can guess, there's some romance as well. Shifting now to Demons and Monsters. This next one also has a musical component to it, so it easily could have fallen in that category, but I do feel like the monster feel better represents it, and that would be This Savage Song and its sequel, Our Dark Duet. The setup for this one, it's by V.E. Schwab. If you know anything about V.E. Schwab, you know that she just can't resist writing wickedness into her stories, and this is no exception in this book. The setup is that you are following our world, but something occurred that now makes it so that people, when there are horrible acts committed, it transforms into some kind of monster. And the kind of monster depends on the act committed. So the idea is that the worse the act, the more dangerous the monster. And with our current main perspectives, you follow a character who is the daughter of somebody who has done a great job rallying a lot of people together to keep their city safe from monsters. However, they have a lot of sway and a lot of power over people, so they're not exactly a welcoming figure. They're rather dangerous, and our character is feeling at odds with her relationship with her father because she doesn't really know how to fit into this. He keeps people safe, but he's dangerous himself. And then there is somebody from a different part of the city who, or you could say almost like a different city entirely because of the way that monsters have impacted them. And this individual actually has a secret that has to do with the monsters, and they themselves play music, and it is definitely an integral part of how everything plays out with the story. And these two find themselves coming together, and they develop a friendship despite being completely different. She's kind of rough around the edges, and he's a cinnamon roll type of character. And they're just trying to figure out how to combat not only the very obvious threat of monsters, but their own personal demons, you could say. Next up, I'm pretty much recommending anything by Elizabeth Lim, but specifically because we want to fit within this prompt of demons, we have Spin the Dawn and its sequel. So this is known as the Blood of Stars duology. Fun fact, this author's works are actually often contained within the same world. So if you pick this one up and then later you pick up Six Crimson Cranes as an example, you're going to see a little nod to a different character that had popped up in this. So that's really fun. I think a lot of us enjoy getting those little Easter eggs. You don't necessarily have to read one before the other, with the exception, of course, of ones that are in the literal same series. But regardless, the setup for this one, when it was first marketed, it was marketed as Project Runway meets Mulan, which seems like a really bizarre mix. And it's not that that's inaccurate, it's just that only describes a piece of it. So yes, it is accurate in the sense that our main character, she ends up disguising herself as a boy to take the place of one of her male family members, and then tries to enter this competition to become the ruler's tailor. And she's very, very gifted when it comes to her profession, or her hobby, you could say, because she isn't really allowed to work in this field because of the fact that she is a girl, but she has been doing it secretly. And she's been trying to do this to keep her family afloat after they have lost some other family members. So this is very, very important to her. You feel for her, and there is somebody who's kind of watching her and can tell that she has a secret and that perhaps she is not who she is presenting herself to be. So all of that happens initially, and then from there is kind of this quest storyline, and that quest storyline is where you're going to see the idea of there being demons pulled into the picture and trying to preserve everyone and their world as they know it. While not totally the same in its inspirations or even its general aesthetic and feel, I still felt like I couldn't go through this category without mentioning Frieren. There is, of course, an anime adaptation that you can watch. A second season has been announced. And then within this, there is a manga that the show is based off of, and it follows it really, really closely. So you can check out whichever you prefer. But the setup is that you follow, it's actually really tragic. You follow this elf who, because she is an elf, she lives much longer than humans do. And she went on this great quest to defeat this demon king, essentially, and protect the world from that person. And then they succeeded in their quest. And then from there, she decided, well, I'm just going to go on my way and do what I want to do. I want to discover more spells and other such things. And the other members of her party, some of whom were humans, are kind of trying to clue her into the fact that don't go out for too long or we're never going to see you again because we don't live very long. And she's like, I'll see you when I see you, only to realize that, in fact, humans don't live particularly long lives. And she spent so much time journeying after that's why it's called Frieren Beyond Journey's End. She spent so much time journeying that when she comes back, the humans that she had become friends with are now about to pass away. So after this event, this is all at the very beginning of the story, she realizes that she didn't really embrace life as much as she had wanted to. So now her new quest, you could say, is to try and not only enjoy the things that she enjoys, but also find ways to connect with other people. And that is an oversimplification. It is really beautiful and it's really well done, but also part of the story is fighting demons. And I don't necessarily think, as I stated, that the worlds feel that similar. This is more classic fantasy RPG feel, but I do think that there is something to the feeling that you get. This one's a little more melancholy than K-Pop Demon Hunters, but I do think that there's just something that kind of connects us to the very essence of being a person. And I think K-Pop Demon Hunters taps into something that's a lot more uplifting, and this one's uplifting in a quiet way, with some reminders to the sad. I would say more overt reminders to the sad. But I just think that while they're different, I can certainly see there being overlap in the audiences. Next up, we have The Floating World. This author has also written The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, which I could absolutely see some parallels between, but I think this one fits recommendations more clearly from an If You Like This, Try That for K-Pop Demon Hunters. The setup for the story is that you follow a character who is a part of traveling performers, and that already has some similarities to the protagonist of K-Pop Demon Hunters, but then the love interest character, the other character that gets introduced, is, it would seem, part demon, because he keeps referencing this demon that's inside him. And our main character seems to have her own secrets, and after she was actually attacked by demons, she's now trying to find a way to revive the people that she cares about who have been injured. And then also she's somewhat on the run because in her attempts to defend herself and the people she cares about, she might have done something to clue others into what her secret is. And these characters end up crossing paths in a way because the one who is part demon, or at least it would seem he's part demon, he is tasked with trying to find her and bring her back to gain a reward, which matters to him as he is searching for his long-lost brother. So you understand from both sides where the characters are coming from, and then you kind of discover a little bit more about the world as we progress. There's also a third perspective in this that ties in the politics of their world a little bit as well. But regardless, I do feel like the character interactions, there's definitely some things that are related. I did put this in the demon category though, just because I feel like it's such a significant part of the love interest's character, as well as just a big part of the world. And a story that I feel could absolutely fit into any of these, but definitely I think over the course of this trilogy fits within this category the best, and that would be Shadow of the Fox. While of course some of the other recommendations today have incorporated Korean folklore, and I think that is the most obvious one-to-one, this one is actually rooted in Japanese folklore. The setup for the story is that you have a character who is living with all of these monks. She is part fox, so she's a little bit trickster, and she has been kept away from everyone else, and she finds out that there's this piece of a scroll that's very, very powerful that the monks have been tasked with protecting. However, after this catastrophic event and all of these demons coming after these monks, she is now finding herself tasked with protecting this piece of a scroll. And then within all the chaos, another character shows up who is a part of this shinobi shadow clan, and he also is tasked with finding the piece of the scroll. So he shows up during all the chaos, and she decides, as it is in her nature to be a trickster, that this person might very well kill her if they realize that she has a piece of the scroll. So she tells him that she doesn't have a piece of the scroll, but she's been tasked with finding the information about it. And so she knows she needs to go a certain place, and she figures, this person, maybe I can have them protect me if I lead them down the trail that I also need to go down. So these two join forces, and she's keeping the secret from him, and she is consistently fearful that he's going to discover that she actually does indeed have the piece of the scroll that he is tasked with finding. And he is somebody who has been trained to not have any emotions. He almost feels like a demon in and of himself, and this is in part not only because he's been taught how to shut his emotions off, but because he also has this weapon that has a demon within it, and sometimes it can give him more strength if he taps into that power, but he can't do it too much, because if he does, he'll turn into a demon himself. Now for the music, vibes, and animation category, and I wanted to ensure, even if it wasn't necessarily connected to the actual setting, that I found something that I felt like the animation style was similar, and that it also was just so much fun. And I feel like Into the Spiderverse, if you haven't watched it, this is a really great one. It is very different in its story, but the animation is so fun. And I remember when this came out, and a lot of people, I think, were taken aback because it was so different from what we would get from our usual, not just Spider-Man, but superhero stories in general. And it's, to this day, I think one of the best Spider-Mans. It's just so fun. I'm a huge fan of animation in general. I wish more things were animated, and I really feel like Into the Spider-Verse opened a lot of people's eyes to just how amazing animated things could be. And it's just so much fun. It's a great story, and as I said, one of the best, I think, Spider-Man movies. After that, this is a tough one for me to say, I'm not gonna lie. And for any of you that know me, know why this is tough. There aren't too many things that I think better fit as a recommendation for K-Pop Demon Hunters than Final Fantasy X-2. I am a huge fan of Final Fantasy X. I often say that I pretend that its sequel doesn't exist because I think Final Fantasy X has a pretty perfect ending. It is very devastating. It's a fantastic story overall. The sequel is pure fun camp. It's not that there aren't melancholy moments, of course, and it's not like there aren't references to the devastation that you witness within the first Final Fantasy X, but the setup is that you follow these three characters, and one of them, the kind of main character of the group, is a pop star, and then there's a character who is the sort of stoic, mysterious, quiet, cool one. Then you have the character that's fun and bubbly and cute, and these three come together, and they're not just pop stars, but they're also kind of protecting the world, and it's so similar that I was like, I have to recommend it, even though I often pretend it doesn't exist, but I have to acknowledge its existence because it's too perfect to not recommend. And actually, I'm not gonna lie, I might want to go back and replay it now because I'm like, I do want more things like K-Pop Demon Hunters, and that's kind of what this is. So tonally, it's very different from the first one, which is why I feel so weird about it, but it is tonally like K-Pop Demon Hunters. And if you're curious, do you have to play the first one to play the second? I would recommend that you do. It's gonna make, I think, the second one's story and the things that are more important to the actual plot lines and characters, I think it's going to ensure that you have a better understanding of those things. Technically, you don't have to, but that's, of course, up to you. I would say give the first one a go. I also am a huge fan of Final Fantasy X. So anytime I can recommend it, of course I'm going to, but if you just wanted to jump into it for the fun, you absolutely could. After that, we have the book Song of the Six Realms, and the setup for this is that you follow a character who is essentially indentured, and she is tasked with performing, and she is a musical performer. She's very, very gifted, and she's trying to use her gifts to work down her servitude. However, it does seem like this is going to last indefinitely, and she's trying to just kind of get a grasp on that this is her reality. And then one day this mysterious figure shows up and they decide, I think you're so talented, I want you to come back with me. He seems like some kind of lord, and he seems to have a lot of prestige surrounding him. And so she ends up accepting this offer because it's the only thing really that seems as though it's going to get her out of her bad situation. And he wants to hear her perform a little bit more. At the very least, it seems like there's something that he's drawn to when it comes to her musicality. And then when she ends up in the place that he lives, she's discovering that her musical abilities maybe are connected to things to do with the celestial realm. And then from there, you see a lot of intrigue. The next recommendation is one of, I think, the most perfect ones, and that would be Sailor Moon. So I think part of why K-Pop Demon Hunters just made me so happy is because as a kid, Sailor Moon was my favorite thing. When I was really little, I loved Sailor Moon. And I think there's something about, one, the tone, because it is just so fun and so campy. And of course, the fact that they're fighting evil by moonlight, just that feeling of the living these double lives. So of course it's got all of that. But also just, and this is why it's music, vibes, animation, the vibes. I mean, the prettiness of it all, the fact that they're not only fighting bad guys, but they're doing it while looking fabulous. And then you've got the different personalities and they all come together and they support each other. They argue, they uplift each other. It was just so fun. And if you've never checked out Sailor Moon, this is the perfect opportunity. It is so much fun. There's a lot about Sailor Moon you could check out because, of course, there is a manga, there's multiple different shows that you can watch, so you can kind of look into what you feel would be best suited for your interests, but Sailor Moon is one of the most perfect. The romance factor, too, as well, I think, fits in really, really nicely. After that, we have one of the most precious slice of life movies that you could ever ask for, and that would be Whisper of the Heart. This is an absolutely adorable film. My husband and I, the whole movie, were just like, oh, like, we just couldn't get over how adorable it is. The setup is that you follow this young girl who is in school, and it's basically about the first time that you have a crush and you maybe fall in love and how you're awkward and silly, and it doesn't seem maybe like it would pull your heartstrings so much, but it really, really does because the characters are just so earnest and you're so endeared to them as you're watching them just navigate social interactions and trying to find themselves and having so many big emotions that they don't know what to do with. And you're specifically seeing this character and this boy who at first they don't really like each other and then they kind of get to know each other, and he plays music, he's very gifted with violin. He actually is really great too when it comes to the making of instruments, and so that's something he sees he wants to potentially pursue, and she's just so wowed that he knows what he wants to do with his life because she has no idea what she wants to do with her life, and it's great. And the music in this is very, very sweet and lovely, and it accompanies the story really well. It is great. If you just need a slice of life that's maybe not as vibrant and lush as K-Pop Demon Hunters, but is a little bit more of like a quieter, cute version of some of the things that you probably liked about that movie, then Whisper of the Heart. It's also just the best, you don't feel good, you need to feel better kind of movie. It's cute, it's great. Whisper of the Heart, wonderful. This next one is like a much darker version, of course, because it's a TV show as opposed to a movie, it's much longer, and that would be Arcane. So the worlds are very, very different. What's transpiring is at the end of the day, kind of like a class struggle, and then with really, really great character arcs within that. But I wanted to recommend this because, one, I think the animation, if you're somebody who just really, really enjoys animation and you kind of like to geek out about it, there's a reason that people point to Arcane as being one of the most pivotal that we've had in years when it comes to not only what it did with animation and with different art styles, but also what I described earlier about Into the Spiderverse, kind of opening people's eyes to just how amazing animation can be and how good it can be when it comes to telling a great story. So Arcane is great for that. I also just think something about some of the character designs and the hairstyles, are very similar in some ways, a little different, but I really feel like the details when it came to the character designs, I think from one to the next, there's a lot of appreciation that can be given to both. The character of Jinx and the character of Echo, while not a perfect one-to-one necessarily, I do think that these characters, in some ways, you're going to see some parallels. I won't say too much, but you'll see some parallels to some events from K-Pop Demon Hunters, and even with the music and how the music plays a huge role in Arcane. And I think with these two characters in particular, how you see the two of them shown through the music when they are around each other and how it sounds and what it's bringing out versus what you see in season 2. I think that how they utilize the music to showcase the change and the shifts is amazing. In general, there's a lot more so about what's in the background and the development of these stories that I think are similar, less so the stories themselves. But Arcane is absolutely fantastic. If you're looking for another great animated show, this one absolutely fits the bill. As I stated at the beginning, if you have your own recommendations, feel free to leave those, and I'll have everything that I mentioned in the description bar, and then I'll also have, if I've gone more in depth over on my main channel for the books, or if it's something like Arcane, for example, I'll have that playlist linked. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.